What's going on, everybody out there in YouTube land? Welcome to my channel. Let me thank you first for tuning in to Maverick Media. Today we're going to be getting into the good, bad, and the ugly of 2022's Scream 5. Before we do that, do me a favor and click that subscribe button you see below this video. And if you will, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think in regards to my review of this movie. The good news is if this particular topic or this particular movie isn't your cup of tea, I plan on having plenty of other reviews coming down the pipe here in the near future. So with that, all that said, let's get into this movie review. So Scream 5 takes place back in Woodsboro, I think 10 years later after Scream 4 did, and we have a new cast and crew. And thankfully, we have a few OG3 characters that end up making an appearance. Before I get into my likes and my dislikes, this one I'm kind of on the fence on. The marketing team for Scream 5 did one of the most phenomenal jobs of putting this out there on people's radars. Even if you're not a Scream fan, I know people I work with, I had conversations with that didn't know much about the franchise, but seem to be excited about this upcoming movie. Oddly enough, with Scream 4, and I'm somebody who is a fan of that, I don't even remember ever seeing a preview. I don't remember seeing anything about it. So on one hand, I really thought they knocked it out of the park when it came to putting this on people's radars. However, the trailers killed me. I felt like I had seen the movie before I had seen the movie. I felt like way too much was put in. And I think that's becoming more of a common theme, that like with this new Batman movie, I can't wait for that to come out. However, I feel like I've seen the movie already. So I wish that maybe more stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, or maybe you just shoot some extra footage that hey, this looks good, but it's not going to be in the movie. I wish that was the stuff that we saw more. Secondly, there were some scenes in the trailer that got taken out that I can't believe. I mean, the silhouette of Ghostface on that brick wall after, which, by the way, this is going to be a spoiler review. It's been, nearly a month since the movie came out, and I'll make sure I have that in the headline on this particular video. Everything I'm going to do is going to be spoiler. Any video I do is going to be spoiler unless I'm maybe on somebody else's channel. There were some scenes, particularly like that, where I don't know how that didn't get the green light, like how that it would have taken 3 more seconds to the movie, having Ghostface extend his arms with the knife after stabbing Vince in the neck. That doesn't make sense to me. So with that said, let's get into my likes and my dislikes. All right, so predictably, we open up at the Carpenter residence where Tara's home alone by herself. Like I said, we knew this coming from the trailer, but even with that said, this was a fantastic opening. As close to being as good as the original as this franchise has ever seen. Radio Silence just killed it. Pun intended. They did such a good job with the dialogue, which all the sequels after the first one really struggled with. I don't know if it was they struggled with or they just decided they were going to shorten it, but it felt like this went on, the little cat and mouse game went on for a lot longer in this one than it had in any other movie after 96. So I thought the dialogue was great. I thought that the brutality of Ghostface when he finally, or she finally make their move and attack Tara was better than it's ever been in this movie. I don't recall Ghostface being this brutal, whether it was the prison style frickin' stabbing, or, you know, stomping her leg, breaking her leg, stabbing her through the hand. And by the way, those eyes, Jenna Ortega is such a good actress. Like, her eyes made you feel like she almost took one for the team and was like, yeah, just put that knife through my hand. Let's really sell this thing. She did such a good job. So the brutality was great. The dialogue was great. The only thing, well, I guess there's two things, but one of them I'll get to towards the end. And it's not so much that I disliked it. It's just kind of well, like I said, we'll save it for the end. One of the things that bothered me was when they're playing their trivia game for Amber's life, what Tara believes is to save Amber. And she gets sent what she thinks is a live feed of Ghostface outside of her window. The second that she gets the last question wrong, she gets who was the killer in, you know, the Woodsboro massacre. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but she gets asked that question and she says, I know this answer, it's Billy Loomis. And she's so happy that, you know, Amber's safe. And Ghostface lets her know, you're wrong. It was Billy Loomis and Stu Macher, which I'm so glad we got a Stu Macher reference in this movie. I was hoping we would get an appearance because he is alive, but just getting the reference was awesome. So the second that he lets her know that she's wrong, what she thought was a live feed, but we know is just a video, it was timed perfectly for the knife to come up like, oh, I'm about to go in there and stab her, you know, prompting Jenna or Tara to run to the front door and get slashed by Ghostface, who's waiting for her. I can suspend disbelief for a lot of movies. I generally do, and most of us do. It just seemed like that was an easy error to avoid. Like, why? How would they know, like, this round of questioning is going to go for 60 seconds, and at the 58-second mark, I'm going to have to bring up my knife? You know, like, just the way that it went sequentially makes no sense. Minor, very minor, doesn't ruin the movie for me, nothing like that. But I couldn't look past it. Anyways, so after, you know, she runs to the front door, gets slashed in the stomach by Ghostface, they brought in what I thought was an awesome kind of modern day tool that some of us use, right? Which is our smartphones to lock and unlock doors, or open garages, or, you know, adjust the air conditioner before we get home early if you're living that life of luxury. But it was such a good it was so cool to see them bring that in, because that's something that we use every day, that, you know, every now and then, like, I'll get a ring trip on my doorbell, you know, and I'm wondering who's at the door. Sometimes it's in the middle of the night because it's the neighbor's cat that's just, you know, being weird. But, you know, just those little things that they used. And I'm telling you, I have a feeling that if you have one of those automatic, you know, apps that lock and unlock your door from your phone, and you don't know, one of these days you're going to see, like, door unlocked. You're going to see that same thing after watching this movie, and you're going to be like, man, I hope that's my kid, or I hope that's my, you know, spouse, whoever. I thought that was really cool. So all in all, opening scene was good. Minor little detail. I thought you could have avoided that, and no big deal. After Tara's attack, we're briefly introduced to Sam and Richie, where Wes notifies Sam of the attack of her sister, and Sam and Richie decide to make the trip to Woodsboro to go see her sister. After that, we get introduced to the new core group of friends. We have Wes, Amber, Mindy, Chad, and Liv, and then we get a brief appearance from Vince, which is another big issue. I think Kyle Gallner is a great actor. was anticipating more. I thought he would be either potentially a ghost face, especially once they revealed that he was the nephew of Stu Macher, or I thought he would be one of your like quintessential red herrings. As we learn throughout the film, well, after that initial appearance, he's not in the movie much longer after that. I thought Radio Silence, given that they already had big shoes to fill, taking on the Scream franchise, no matter how you feel about some of the sequels, this is a Wes Craven thing, and when you're coming in and taking over after his passing, you're already behind the 8 ball. Couple that with starting from scratch. Now, that was just their idea. Like, let's start over. We've done Gale, Dewey, and Sid. We've done that, or we've seen that a million times. Let's go in a new direction. They had a huge task because they had to make a new movie. They had to introduce brand new characters, and I thought they did really well. Some of the characters, like I said, Vince, if you blinked, you missed it. I mean, he was in and out of the movie that quick. Liv, I thought she would be another red herring throughout the movie, and there were glimpses of that, but again, her role was so minor that I thought she was underutilized. Amber was unlikable from the start. Every scene that she was in, she just had this sourpuss, there was nothing likable about her throughout this movie. And if that was Mikey Madison's goal, or Radio Silence's goal for her, she carried it out. She did a great job with that. So, not saying that she's not a likable person in real life, I have no idea, but just as far as the way either she was written or the way she played it, intentional or not, completely unlikable. The twins I thought were fantastic. They literally, if I didn't know any better, I would have thought they were actually twins. Their interactions together were great. Everything about them, they looked similar. Their relationship, I've got a few friends that have siblings that are they're twin, and their banter back and forth, it felt so organic. It felt natural. So I loved Chad and Mindy. Mindy I had high expectations just given from what I had heard about her, kind of being the film nerd and being that she is the niece to Randy. But she did so good with it. Like, she was one of my favorites. She had a very Kirby-esque feel to her. So Wes Hicks is a character that I had a lot of high expectations for, given the fact that he was named kind of as a tribute to Wes Craven. I figured Radio Silence was gonna go the safe road and make him a hero, or kind of give him the same treatment Randy got in the original Scream. I was hoping what they did was made him a villain. I was hoping that he was going to be Ghostface, and I had this entire tinfoil hat conspiracy theory going back to Stu being alive, because whether you like it or not, they said it. That was part of the original Scream 3 script, that Stu was calling the shots from prison. And most of you know that this was later turned into a TV show the following. I still think that we will see Stu before this trilogy is over. Anyways, I had these grand expectations that Stu was calling the shots from prison. His, via conjugal visits with now Sheriff Judy Hicks, they had a son who was Wes, and she was she was basically relaying what Stu wanted from jail and Wes, and one other person who I thought was Richie, which I ended up being right later that he was one of the Ghostface killers. I had this whole thing concocted that this is what was happening. I hope they go this route. It will be so wild, and it would have been amazing. Needless to say, that didn't happen. Wes was he was a integral part of the story, but not. I think he was not really. He fell short of my expectations. We'll just put it that way. However, he did have the second coolest kill in this movie and possibly in the entire franchise. I think my first best kill, I'll talk about it later, but Wes's the knife in the neck, I thought that was, the practical effects were amazing. And that was such an awesome kill. And I think it was the first time I've ever seen blood spit up on Ghostface mask. I could be wrong. Okay, I'm not perfect with all of these, but the reality of like the knife in the neck as he's sliding down the back of the front door and he coughs and just a little speck of blood hits Ghostface mask on the cheek and you just see it there and you're like, holy crap. And then he leaves the knife, just leaves it in his neck. That was so freaking awesome. I'm glad I was wrong in this instance because we got probably, in my opinion, the second coolest kill in this franchise. And now there were two, Richie and Sam. Starting off with Richie, I felt like Jack Quaid did an amazing job in this film. He was likable until the turn, right? Until he became or revealed himself as Ghostface. But even then, there was a level of like crazy in his eyes that, and his delivery with, the sit the F down, Prescott. And he seemed like a deranged fan who was kind of bottling all this anger and hatred towards, the direction the Stab franchise had gone. He had been bottling this up. And it was finally time to, let the beast out of the cage. So I felt like Jack Quaid did probably the best acting job in this movie. I think he was my favorite. Tara right behind him, or Jenna Ortega right behind him. And obviously, Jack Quaid's good, and I love him in The Boys. I think he's hilarious in a weird kind of way. But whatever he does, he's really good in, and obviously he comes from a good pedigree of acting with his mom being Meg Ryan and dad Dennis Quaid. But yeah, he was totally likable, even though I felt like I knew that he was the killer. Going into this, I thought he was the killer, and then about 20 minutes into the movie, I was like, oh yeah, he for sure is the killer. But there's a couple of scenes that I'm going to show right now that I took pictures of while I was in the theater, of the eyes, the crazy eyes. And you see that once he finally, reveals himself as Ghostface, you see that look in his face throughout the last, the third act of the movie. But when he first meets Dewey, and then later when he sees Sid in the hospital for the first time, he gives these crazy eyes, like this obsessed fan, which, remember, early on, he was, according to him, he was completely oblivious to Woodsboro murders and Stab and everything. But if you look closely and you look at these eyes, this look that he gave Dewey, and you see that same kind of look when he sees Sid in the hospital, that is the look of a crazed fan, and not the kind of fan that's going to ask for your autograph. This is the kind of person that's going to be like, if I can't have you, nobody will. And instead of handing you a pen and a paper, they're going to hand you a hunting knife. So, yeah, I thought Jack Quaid, little things like that, I don't know if those were conscious decisions of his to do. Those are things I caught on to, and I'm like, what a brilliant choice. If that was him, right? His decision. That was amazing. Now, Sam, on the other hand, Sam is a tough one to call for me. On the one hand, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's a great actress. I don't really know much about her. This is the first movie I've ever seen her in. So she was a little flat for me throughout the entire movie. And I don't know if that was her choice because she's playing a character who suffers from some sort of mental illness that I don't ever recall them actually saying what it is. And she's, she is medicated. However, it's apparent from the Billy Loomis Force ghosts that we see throughout the movie, which I thought was a huge mistake, them doing that. The medications aren't working. So I don't know if she was being kind of dry and flat throughout the movie because she is somebody who's dealing with past trauma, and obviously she's not being able to, cope with it completely because she is having hallucinations of her dead biological father. I want to reserve judgment until Scream 6, until before I really, really formulate an opinion, because this is the first movie I've ever seen her in. So she was fine. It wasn't, like I said, she didn't. If she's gonna be our final girl for the remainder of this trilogy, she's gonna have to step it up. That's just the bottom line. I thought Tara was and will be a much better final girl, just given, Jenna Ortega's acting chops. I think she's outstanding. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I think the jury is still yet, it's to be determined on how Sam will be throughout the rest of this franchise. I think there's a lot of avenues they can travel, given the fact that she is the daughter of Billy Loomis. So I'm interested to see what these next few movies hold in store for Sam. So yeah, for her, I'm just going to reserve judgment on that one. I will say that Sam has by far my favorite kill in this entire franchise. And that's saying something because there's been a lot of amazing kill scenes throughout the previous 4 movies leading up to this one. The final kill, or I guess it's the second to last kill, where she goes ham on Richie, was so cool. I could have again done without the, Billy's reflection in the mirror kind of nodding or pointing to her with his head movements where the knife was under the curtain, but where she hits him with the line that, there's another rule, don't mess with the serial killer's daughter. Knife through the cheeks, and then I think she stabbed him 22 or 23 times, gives him a throat slit, and then does a failure drill on him just for good measure, so they don't have to worry about him coming back. And for those of you that don't know what a failure drill is, it's 2 to the body and then 1 to the head. And that was the best. So Sam, not 100% sold on her as a final girl, but I will give her that she has the best kill in this entire franchise. And now for the OG3. I'll start with my favorite of the 3 in this film, and probably in the entire franchise, which is Dewey. I thought this was the best version of Dewey that we've ever gotten. You could see that his prior experiences had really gotten the best of him. he was down and out, and at one point had dived deep into the bottle. But he kind of had like an old man Logan vibe to him, where he was as roughed up as he was still, just still going. One thing I would have liked to see in that initial introduction to him before Sam and Richie come and knock on his trailer was, instead of him taking a bite of whatever it was out of the refrigerator and spitting it in the sink, I would have liked to see him, like as he's pulling, his shirt on, getting ready in the morning, just seeing all the scars on his body from all the different attacks that he's lived through over the years, because he does make that comment. I've been stabbed 9 times. I have permanent nerve damage. I would have liked to have had a scene just of him while he's getting up and getting ready before he gets his cup of coffee to watch Gail on the news, or watch her morning TV channel. Just seeing him like pulling his shirt down and just seeing his body just scarred up. I was hoping that they weren't going to kill him, because it appeared that way from the trailers. And there was a turning point in that fight in the hospital that Dewey has with Ghostface, where he makes the comment, "Not today." And I thought, they tricked us. They knew the ones of us that jumped the gun on all these trailer scenes, that's he's going to live. He's going to live. The "not today" was their gotcha moment to all of us who love just analyzing trailers, breaking them down, and assuming we know what's going to happen. And it wasn't. Dewey did die. And I don't get paid to make decisions for movie studios, or I don't get paid to write scripts. But God, that was a huge mistake. That was... I'll listen to people explain why they thought it was a good decision. But I haven't heard anybody say it was a good decision to kill Dewey off. I thought it was a complete error. They did so good in this movie, but that just, I can't. I'll never forgive Radio Silence for killing off Dewey. It was literally his best performance yet. He was so flawed, and there was so many layers to him. And you killed him. I just, Anyways, with that hospital scene, there's something a little bit later on that I'm going to be breaking down as like my stuff that I look at under a microscope and go into some theories with that. But yeah, total error on their part killing off Dewey. He was amazing. So Gail was in this film. Let's put it that way. I thought I felt like those rumors that we heard or around Scream 4 where she wanted to be killed off, I felt like that carried over in her performance in Scream 5. She did have a couple of good back and forth scenes with Dewey where, particularly where she was, told him, hey, you're a lot of things, but you're no coward. I thought that was a really good scene with her. I thought, I felt like at that point she was all in on this movie. And the scene where you see Dewey being wheeled out of the hospital, and, she's screaming out for him. Totally an appropriate reaction to someone you love, even if it's your ex-husband. It seemed like the love was still there. It was more of the difference in lifestyle is what it caused them, Dewey to sneak off in the middle of the night when they moved to New York, and him just not being cut out for that fast-paced style of living. But then, like, her emotions were gone from that point on. She was kind of like, it was almost like she was the comedic relief, but her little one-liners weren't funny, where she's like, that saying about the original? Well, this is the original. Or, everything was just bizarre. Like the hey, new girl, you know, just she was strange, and I can't quite put my finger on if it's that she just doesn't want to do it or if that's just how she was written, because I get it. These main characters do have to take a back seat because we're moving this franchise in a different direction. I felt like it was an odd performance from Gale. Now, Sid, on the other hand, she was fine. She was good, but no fault of her own. She just wasn't in this movie that much. So I can't hold that against her. I wish there was more. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think she's the greatest final girl of any horror movie franchise. Like, she's number one. So I would have liked to have seen her in this more, but I understand from Radio Silence's standpoint that at a certain point we can only watch so many killers' motives be they just want to kill Sid. They have to move this in another direction, and that's what they did with the new cast. So I'm not going to knock her for not being in this movie, because that's out of her control, or not being in this movie as much as I would have liked, is a better way of putting it. I did like the little nod that Mark was watching the girls. So Mark Kincaid and her clearly hit it off after Scream 3, and had some babies. And I feel like that maybe that's where the whole tracker on Sam thing came from. Mark Kincaid was a detective, and I think for either LAPD or LASO. So maybe she picked up a few of those sleuthy tips from him and figured, well, the killer is going to be going after Sam, so let me drop this tracker here on Sam's car, Richie's car, whoever's it was, and we will know where the killer is in this for once and for all. So I thought Sid was good. I just wish there would have been more of her. All right, so now that we got the main cast behind us, these are the things that I can't help but notice when I watch these movies. And for whatever reason, my brain remembers it, it sees it, it remembers it, and then it just starts dissecting it. So these are the things that I found to be odd and not make much sense, as I've kind of alluded to earlier in this video. So there was the scene after Sam decides that her and Richie are going to stay with Tara in the hospital while Tara was recovering from the opening scene attack. There's deputies, there's nurses and doctors all on this floor. Sam makes her way to the break room to take some medication and engage in a conversation with Billy, Billy's ghost, or her hallucination of Billy. She gets a phone call from Ghostface, and they have a short back and forth between each other, only for Ghostface to reveal himself and attack her. Now we know, after watching this movie, that the goal was to have this whole standoff happen where everybody but Richie and Amber are murdered at Stu's house, right? To try to reboot the Stab franchise. My thing is, what was the point? What was the point of that attack in the hospital? And I don't know how familiar you listening are with hospitals, but there's people everywhere. And not only people, there are cameras everywhere. And we know that it couldn't have been Amber because Amber was being interviewed by Deputy Hicks. So Richie, when Sam steps out of the break room, not like even in anticipation of like, oh gosh, I forgot my phone, or oh gosh, I forgot my pills and would have to come back. Soon as she leaves, Richie leaves, somehow changes into Ghostface costume, doesn't get seen by hospital staff, security, the deputies that are all over the floor, or the surveillance cameras that are all over hospitals. What was the point of that attack? They didn't want to kill her, right? Because they needed they were hoping to have that standoff at the Mocker residence. I don't get it. It's like an unnecessary risk, like a risk reward. What was the benefits of that attack? There was nothing other than maybe them moving Tara to a private floor, which, okay, yeah, but look at the risk that you're taking. That was, to me, it was dumb. I thought that should have never, the Ghostface call would have been enough, right? Him just calling and taunting her that, he did that to Tara and he's going to do it to her. Something. The attack was stupid. So there's that. So for every negative, I'm going to try to give it a positive, right? I'm going to try to end on a good note. So, what I liked about this movie, I loved the fact that they incorporated Red Right Hand in the movie. Even though, like, I felt like they wasted Vince as a character, the implementation of that song when they did it was perfect. The atmosphere, everything was just, I loved it. Not only that, they brought back Broken Arrow, Dewey's theme song, when he showed up at Mindy's house, or Mindy and Chad's house, to meet with Tara's friend group, so that they could lay everything out there about Sam's past. Speaking of which, I loved that scene. Mindy was kind of just going for it. You got to see a portrait of Randy in the background and his little plaque and trophies and their little movie theater. I love that scene, and it was a good breakdown of what Requel actually meant. So that was awesome. I really did enjoy that part of the movie. Now back to what I didn't like. The murder of Sheriff JUUUUUUUY. Now, not that it's not how I feel about Dewey, right? Where it's like, why would you kill that character? It's how they killed her. Now, she's a sheriff of whatever county Woodsboro falls in, I'm assuming, right? She's the countywide sheriff. And she probably lives in a very nice, wealthy neighborhood. It appeared that way. The exterior of the house appeared that way. But my problem with that whole thing, with the exception of the conversation, I thought Roger L. Jackson's Sheriff JUUUUUUUY was a great creative choice that he made. But she lives in a rich neighborhood. Like, everybody, we can all think of somebody in our neighborhood, rich or poor, who's got their finger on the pulse of the neighborhood. They're always staring out their bay window, or they're always out on their porch, or they're always doing something to where they're up in everybody's business. And in broad daylight, the sheriff of Woodsboro and whatever other counties that falls under was murdered, and not one person heard it, okay, or saw it. I hate things like that. It's like, dude, those are easy things to avoid. Let her get inside and get, slashed. Something. But they're bold decisions that I think that the payoffs aren't really there, because you get people who just go, that's not that realistic. Not only that, but then we have the scene that leads up to a really great kill with Wes. Wes gets out of the shower, and they do the door open, door close kind of fake jump scare fake outs. Sheriff Hicks is hauling butt from, on her way to the sushi place back to her house. She's going code 3. That's what they call lights and sirens. She's going code 3. She gets to the house and parks right in front of the front door. And she kills the sirens. And I think she kills the lights, but she kills the sirens for sure. And the car's parked in front of the house. She gets stabbed right up on the steps, and Ghostface, I think, leaves her body because that's where we see her when they're putting the tarp over her face once the deputies arrive. But what we don't see is her car parked in front of the door. So when Wes goes to lock the door before he gets stabbed in the neck, Sheriff Judy's car is not there. And you could say like, oh, well, the angle, maybe it was hidden by the door. Like, no, that car was, you would have seen that patrol vehicle. It's a huge, I think it's a Durango. It's huge. So you don't see that. So did Ghostface move the vehicle in costume? So they stab Sheriff Hicks and then they go, oh, I got to move this car because that's going to be conspicuous. So did they move it, or was Ghostface, was Richie and Amber both there? So one of them jumped in the patrol vehicle and moved it around the corner, and the other didn't. Like the other one went inside and waited for Wes to stab him in the neck. Like, I'm all about continuity. I can't turn that part of my brain off ever since I took a film class or a couple film classes, and like that was one thing my instructor was very like harped on a lot, was continuity. And like just little things like that, like either leave the car there, or just don't park it right in front of the house. Like have her, drive up on the grass, but to where it's covered by those big bushes that are in front of the windows. Something, I don't know. Anyways, not the end of the world, but again, just one of those little errors that that drive me nuts. Back to my likes. So in the hospital, after Sam's attack, which I didn't like that, but Deputy Hicks and Amber are in there, and Amber and Richie are playing a little bit of a blame game, right? Where he's accusing her of being the killer, and she's like, Deputy Hicks vouches, well, she was with me, it could have been me. She goes, yeah, where were you? And he's like, well, I was watching Netflix. And she's like, oh, that's some great alibi you got there. Knowing now, once everything was done, that they were both the killers, and they're literally, it's like hiding in plain sight. They're just sitting there messing with each other. Everybody's clueless as to what is going on, with the exception of them two. And I loved how sinister that was, that they were so confident in what they were doing that they had the gall to actually sit there and accuse each other of being the killers right in the face of the sheriff, his, Sam and Tara, which I think, Amber and Tara had dated or were, I don't know, that still wasn't made very clear, but, with both of their girlfriends kind of present, I thought I loved that part of the movie. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit longer because I'm just going to bunch everything up under the third act that I didn't like. First of all, I didn't mind the motive, but what I don't like is we've kind of gotten into this area of society where it's like we're just going to kind of diss our fans, maybe unintentionally, but I felt like the whole toxic fandom thing was, I felt like you're going to ruffle somebody's feathers that is just there to enjoy a movie. And it's like, well, yeah, of course I didn't like, Scream 4, Scream 3, Scream whatever. But that doesn't make me a toxic fan. So I don't really get that. But anyways, we get into the portion of Ghostface have revealed themselves as Amber and Richie. And they're doing their, whole Bond villain-esque diatribe about their motive and why they're doing what they're doing. And Sam asks how they knew her secret, right? How Amber knew that Billy was her father. And Amber laughs and was like, your mom is the town drunk. Like, she laughs as if that was common knowledge around Woodsboro. But Dewey didn't know, and he was the former sheriff. Deputy Hicks didn't know. Wes didn't know. None of Tara didn't know. Nobody knew, but it was laughed off as like, oh, your mom's the town drunk. Like, who doesn't know that Billy is your biological father? So I felt like that doesn't make sense because nobody knew this information. That was the big lead up to Sam's got a secret, right? And then the reveal of how Amber found out was because her mom was the town drunk, and as if everybody knew. I felt like, not that it's lazy writing, I just felt like it was like they didn't know how exactly to articulate it, or maybe they were pressed for time or something, because I know they cut like 30 minutes out, but how does that make sense? I don't know. If you know how it makes sense, leave a comment down below and explain it to me, because that one I don't understand. And then we have the so Amber is being pummeled by Sydney and Gail in the kitchen, and I think she's, thrown over the kitchen island. They're, smacking each other, punching each other, kicking each other. I think Amber gets shot several times until she falls into the stovetop and eventually lights herself on fire. Which, by the way, the sanitizer, the effing sanitizer line where she gets cracked in the head with that glass jar I did like that. That was funny. So she lights up on fire. If you and your partner are in the commission of mass murder and you're walking up a set of stairs because your girlfriend is now hiding from you somewhere in this house, you're walking up a set of stairs and you hear your partner is getting just beaten to death and eventually torched. How do you not? They're not far from each other. They're in opposite rooms. He's walking up the stairs doing the "Where you at? Where you at, Sam? Where you at?" Amber's she's getting killed, and he at no point in time decides to even just shout out, "Amber, you good? Like, hey, you okay? What's going on in there?" There were gunshots. They weren't on opposite sides of the city. They were a room apart from each other. And regardless, he's just still on his mission to find Sam, who had run upstairs. She could have jumped out a window and gone and, called the cops or something like that. But you got a bigger problem on your hand because you got a 2-on-1 in the kitchen. And it doesn't sound like it's going so hot for your partner. You might want, because if she doesn't make it out of there, well, now you got a 3-on-1 or 4-on-1 if you want to count Tara, 5-on-1 if you want to count Mindy. So I didn't understand that. You're just gonna casually walk up the stairs and play hide and seek with Sam while your partner is getting killed. Then conversely, so that happens, and we get the here's your torch line, which I thought was super cheesy. And Gail and Sid, understandably so, are just kind of leaned back against the counter. Sid was stabbed, Gail was shot. Sam and Richie, again, in the other room where the staircase was, the front entryway, Sam and Richie do a tumble down the stairs, and Richie is on top of her, and right before the awesome scene where she just goes crazy on him, they're just chilling in the kitchen. Amber's been dispatched. She's done, at least until her one last scare. But they're just sitting there just watching. And if you want to say that, well, they were sitting to make sure she didn't pop back up, well, after Sam kills Richie, they leave, only for Amber to pop back up. So now, on the other end of it, where I was just giving Richie crap for not going to help out his partner, well, Gail and Sydney did the same thing. There's a struggle going on right next to him in the other room. And there's no way that they, like, I know they had to have heard it. If you're just being realistic, you had to have heard that struggle. And they didn't go in until after it was done to hand Sam the gun to, to shoot Richie in the body and the head. So I mean, there was a lot of things in that third act. I thought Liv was, I thought her kill was kind of a waste. I mean, there wasn't much there as a character for her, but I kind of felt like just the quick draw, boom, one to the head. I thought that was a little bit of a waste. But yeah, those, it's hard. It's hard when you're doing this. I'm sure, I don't know. I've never directed a movie, but I don't know. Don't make them so close to each other in proximity, because you're going to, unfortunately for whoever's listening right now, you're probably going to notice that same thing the next time you watch it, if you didn't already. So, and if I'm crazy, so be it, but it's, that is what it is. Now for what I liked. I loved seeing that Kirby is still alive. If you pay attention closely, and if you didn't notice it before, down on the side of the what to watch next tabs in Richie's YouTube queue, there is a little Easter egg that says interview with Woodsboro survivor Kirby. So I hope that we get to see her in 6. In what way, shape, or form. Maybe she's going to be taking over Sid's spot. I've heard theories that maybe she's going to be a counselor for the survivors of this movie. I don't know. But what I do look forward to is a little bit of movie trivia competition between Mindy and Kirby. I think that would be amazing. All right, this is the last of my dislikes. And again, it goes back to just the part of my brain I can't turn off when I watch these movies. And please do not mistake my critiques for not liking this movie. This is how I am. So, in the hospital scene after after Tara's initial attack, Sam and Richie go and visit, and they're accompanied by Tara's group of friends. You see Amber, and there's obviously some beef between her and Sam. And I felt like this was potentially a red herring situation, but I felt like they would have brought attention to it like they did Chad's bruises on his arms. But Amber's got a bruise on her right collarbone. It looks like a bruise. Maybe it was a shadow. I don't know, but it looked like a bruise to me. And nobody brings any attention to it. And it was something you didn't see before because her hair was draped over it when they were at the school. And you had to wait for certain angles for her to move to actually see it. But I felt like at that point in time, I was like, okay, she's going to be my number one suspect. Anyways, we get to the dreaded scene where Dewey is murdered in the hospital. And we know it's not Richie that killed Dewey. We know that. But I don't believe that it's Amber. There's no way that was Amber. There's the scene where Richie is talking to Tara after she clocks him with the phone, and Ghostface pops up behind him. And I will show you a screenshot of that right now. Jack Quaid is 6'1", and Mikey Madison is 5'2" or 5'1". This person standing behind Jack Quaid is not 5'2". There is not a 11-inch difference between them two. There's not a 10-inch difference. There's not a 9-inch difference. There's they're somewhat close in height. That person looks like they're maybe 5'8" or 5'9" standing behind Jack Quaid. So not only that, but then Dewey, when he's being attacked, and I'm going to show you this still right here. David Arquette is 5'10", or at least he's listed as 5'10". Again, Mikey Madison, 5'2". There is not an 8-inch difference between these two characters. So, I understand that the person wearing the Ghostface costume is not actually the actor or actress. I get that. But let's just make these things easy, because there's two possibilities that that's either a third killer or Amber is wearing Herman Munster boots. That's it. There's no other way around it. It's not Amber. If you want me to believe that was Amber, because she takes the credit for it, when she tells Gail that Dewey died like a you-know-what, it's not her. So it's either a third killer or she's got like the craziest lifts, like disco platforms on her feet. So, yeah, I can't do it. Oh, and while we're at it, let me show you this, just to further my point, because going back to the bruise on Amber's shoulder, we're led to believe that Richie was with Sam and Modesto, so that Tara was the one that carried out the attack. Now, if you look at this picture, Mikey Madison is 5'2". Jenna Ortega, I think, is 5 foot or 5'1", but they're both relatively close in height. That person is not 5'2". And I know Jenna Ortega is kind of hunkered down because she's trying to keep Ghostface from pushing the door open. But this is what I use. I use point of references. The doorknob, standard doorknobs, there is a minimum and maximum that a doorknob could be on a door for it to pass code. And the bottom is 34 inches, and that's as low as you could put a doorknob. The top would be, I think, 48 inches. Yeah, 48 inches. So, no matter how you want to slice it, whether you put it at 34 or 48 or anywhere in between, the top of Ghostface's head and that doorknob, there's no way that is Amber. So it goes back to the two. Well, this one, it could be three. It could have been Richie. It could have been a third killer. Or Amber is just stalking people in disco platforms. That's it. Because this does not add up. So, yeah. The last of my likes, there were several lines throughout the movie that I thought were funny, or that I enjoyed. Chad, when he was basically denying Liv on the couch, where he was like, "I'm not entirely sure you're not the killer," and then he follows it up with like, "I'm almost 100% certain that you're not, but like the safest option is to be down here with all of the people and the potential witnesses." That was funny. Like that was a curveball. That was a twist I don't think anybody saw coming in this movie. Just, that was great. I really, really liked watching the meta, Mindy on the couch, watching Randy on the couch, watching the first Stab movie with Randy on the couch, watching Halloween, saying, "Look behind you." And her, obviously the same thing is happening. And, she turns around and she does get stabbed, but fortunately both her and Chad survived. I'm so happy that they made it through. I thought Chad, I'm not going to lie, I thought he was a goner. for sure, but it was cool to see him give the thumbs up in the ambulance at the end. So there were several little lines scattered throughout this movie, that that put a smile on my face. So yeah, I was happy that some of our new characters were came off the way that they did, because it does make me look forward to the upcoming. Well, hopefully, I know we got Scream 6 coming, but hopefully Scream 7. And I'm hoping that both Chad and Mindy are a part of Scream 7 as well. All right, so let's wrap this up with a report card for Scream 5. Here you'll see the grading system that I use, and once I give each of the 5 categories, which are plot, dialogue, pacing and structure, cinematography, and entertainment value, once I give all of them a grade, I will calculate it up and give you a GPA here below. So let's start with plot. For the plot, I'm going to give Scream 5 a B. I think that's a fair grade. And by no means is that bad in any way, shape, or form. But I felt like they played it safe by keeping this movie almost a cookie cutter version of the original. And I don't blame them. This is a huge task to take on a Wes Craven franchise and, not just make another sequel. You're having to do a requel and introduce a whole new cast of characters and get the audience to engage and enjoy them as well as the story and have it all make sense. So they had a tough task. What I dinged them for were some creative decisions that they made, particularly killing Dewey. And then some of the dislikes that I talked about, where I thought, some of those things just I don't understand, and I'll never understand. But I am optimistic for Scream 6, and I'm hopeful, I should say, for Scream 7. I don't have any doubt that we will get both of those. I know we're getting Scream 6 for sure, but I am hoping that some of these bold decisions that they made are going to pay off in these later films. So as for dialogue, I'm going to give it a B-. And like I said, there were characters that I really enjoyed, new characters that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed little things that they said, their back and forth. I thought certain characters were well written. What I didn't like was that Sydney and Gail were, like I said, they were there. Sydney was fine. Gail in particular was, I don't know. There were cheesy one-liners, and I felt like I get that we're having to transition, or we're making a transition, but I just felt like the dialogue fell flat. And I don't know. There were certain things that I just, they didn't sit well with me in regards to that. So B- for dialogue. Pacing and structure, I give an A-. And again, going back to how I said with the plot, I felt like this was a very cookie cutter version of Scream 96. And 96 is one of the most seamless horror movies that I've ever seen. I really thought that this movie followed suit. Before I knew it, we were in the third act, and I was like, whoa, this, I didn't feel like it was super choppy. I didn't feel like anything like that was happening. It just kind of was just fluid. So I really liked it. Again, I've voiced in my dislikes kind of what dinged this, but anyways, cinematography, I give an A. It was, I guess in comparison to Scream 4, which it looked like there was, they were shooting it through, it was smeared in Vaseline, or I don't know. this movie looked great. Visually, the the practical effects were awesome. Everything about this movie visually was great. The cast, the new crew, everybody looked great. It was shot well. I didn't have a problem with anything like that. I just thought that this was a well shot movie. And last, for entertainment value, I give it an A-. I enjoyed myself watching this movie. As I said before, I wish that Dewey wasn't dead, and I wish we had a little bit more of that we got a little bit more from Sid and Gale. But I thought this was a overall very entertaining movie, and I've seen it 4 times. I've paid every single time to see it. I thought it was amazing, and I encourage you to do the same if you haven't already, which, why are you listening to a spoiler review if you haven't seen this movie? So I'm assuming you've seen this movie. Go and buy another ticket, because I know we're getting a Scream 6, but, support Radio Silence. Those guys are awesome. Anyways, GPA calculated out 3.42. I think that's a totally fair, respectable, awesome grade for your first crack at a established franchise, and to boot, you're having to take it in a new direction. So good on Radio Silence. Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down below, guys. If you think I'm crazy, tell me why I'm crazy. And if you really like this, just like I said, try to share this with anybody else who's into the horror community. And I will be posting more videos down the road. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.